All right, welcome back to Broncos Country Tonight. Matt Boyer in studio with me. Let's take a look at Drew Lock through his first 8 full games. Of course, he's had 9 games, including his starts. There's a lot of criticism coming off of that loss to the Chiefs, and completely deserved, and he admits a lot of those mistakes that he needs to be better at. So what is fair and what is unfair criticism about Drew Lock at this point in his career?
I think the fair criticism is first of all, I don't think 8 games is enough to necessarily make a complete evaluation of Drew Lock. Now, Drew Lock has admitted, yes, my progressions need to be better. There are things during practice that I need to improve on in order to get myself to where I need to be on Sunday to play at the elite level in the NFL. So I think coming into last year, there was just college tape on him. Now you've got defensive coordinators have a full 8 games to kind of go off of and scheme against Drew Lock. This is the point in every NFL quarterback's career where it's like, okay, the film's out there. Now what are you going to do? How are you going to adjust your game to combat what they're throwing at you? So I think the evaluation is incomplete, but I do think the things that he has to work on, I think his goals are still in front of him for sure.
Right, and so I think that's right. It's incomplete, but you're getting a sense of things. And they're starting to become a narrative. And so what do you want that narrative to be if you're Drew Lock? Do you want it to be where you're a guy in a big game like this? You're your former favorite team in the Chiefs. I'm going to say former because I'm hoping his favorite team is now the Broncos. But against the Chiefs, the last 2 times you played them, you played poorly. And it was a snow game, so maybe there's a little bit of nuance to that conversation, but it's still there. So what do you want that to be? And so I think it's fair to ask those questions, but I don't think it's fair to yet come to conclusions. Is that a good way to put it?
And nobody knows this better than Drew. Drew has been very upfront with the media saying, hey, I know there are things that I need to work on to get better. The way I played on Sunday, it's not going to cut it. And so the fact that he recognizes that, I think, is an extremely important thing because it also shows the fan base, hey, I've got room to grow. I know I've got room to grow, and I'm ready to take the necessary steps.
Okay, what can Pat Shurmur do to help him? Yeah, I saw Jeff Legwold had put this out around halftime. He said, well, out of 12 and 13 personnel, which is 2 tight end or 3 tight end sets, you had 92 yards rushing. The Broncos were running the ball very, very well there. When they went to 11 personnel, which is 3 wide receivers, they had a lost fumble, a pick 6, an intentional grounding, 2 sacks. There's a little cause and effect blurry lines there, but let's just for conversational purposes, is maybe what's best for this team right now, potentially more 12 personnel, more 13 personnel, having 2 tight ends out there, maybe even 3.
When they went to 13 personnel on Sunday, I was like, oh, okay. Like this is kind of nice seeing Albert O and Noah Fant and Nick Van Ed all out there at the same time. It also allows, the Broncos have extremely athletic offensive linemen. So when you see guys like Garrett Bowles pulling on a lot of these long runs, enabling Phillip Lindsay to create in space, I think that's extremely valuable. Now, it's also situational, right? Like if you're down 24-9, you can't be running 13 personnel. I mean, you gotta get your playmakers out there, and you gotta get big plays, big chunks of yards. Now, that's a lot of teams don't have the type of athletic receiving tight ends that the Broncos do in Albert O and Noah Fant. So while, yes, I do think that it's all situational, I'd like to see a little bit more, 12 and 13. I think you got to utilize the weapons you have, and the Broncos have some great tight ends.
Is it possible the Broncos might be forced into a little bit more of that if Tim Patrick is unable to play this weekend?
Oh, for sure, because you think about if Tim Patrick doesn't go, now you're going to be asking a lot of your rookie wide receivers who have played well in certain instances, but have also, struggled. We saw KJ Hamler, drop the slant pass that ended up as an interception on Sunday. So I think that when you've got a veteran like Noah Fant on the field,
veteran. He's a second-year player.
Well,
but I mean, that's when you're this young.
That's
I know,
where we're
you're
at,
right.
So I think when you've got a guy who's been a security blanket for Drew Lock, that's kind of the guy that you're going to have to lean on.
Well, I mean, it seems like that. There were times where it felt like he was open in the game and Drew wasn't quite seeing him. So I don't know, I don't want to get into the force-feeding conversation, but there are times when I think about, okay, well, you want to get the ball in your playmaker's hands with the opportunity to do something with that. And there were times the Broncos have been very good at that during the course of the season. And there are times where it seems like they're still struggling with it.
I think he saw the scoreboard at 24-9 and was like, okay, we got to make a play. We got to really take shots, And I think that might have been why he missed Noah a couple of times underneath. My favorite quote about quarterbacks is Peyton Manning's, you can never go broke taking a profit. And if you're doing that consistently, getting those, short chunks, in, whether it's Fant underneath or, an out route to the side to Tim Patrick, whoever. I think that, not forcing the big play is going to be key for Drew Lock, especially in these next couple of games.
Well, yeah, I mean, if you're averaging 3.5 yards per play,
right,
you're going to be getting first downs every single opportunity. Now, the Broncos can't be behind by 2 or 3 scores in that scenario. So that's going to be an interesting case for the Broncos with or without Tim Patrick, is how do you stay on schedule on the offensive side of the ball? How does Drew Lock keep this team on schedule? And everybody gets excited about the gunslinger thing, but I almost feel like we got to dial this back a little bit and say, no, wait a minute, you got to crawl, walk, run here. What's first here? First, you maintain and put together drives that put you into the red zone. They did that against the Patriots. They moved the ball. They actually had times against the Chiefs where they were moving the ball when they wanted to, but because they were trailing by so many scores, because of the interception, the pick six, and because of the kickoff return touchdown, which is not Drew. That one's not Drew Lock's fault. Unfortunately, you're in a position against a very good team. The Chiefs are a good defense against a good team that you are not allowed to stay on schedule. And even if you are running the ball really well, you start to have to take deep shots, and then you're off your base. I don't think this team is ready for that sort of thing yet.
No, I don't want to make excuses for the Broncos offense, but we mentioned running the football. The Broncos haven't had Phillip Lindsay and Melvin Gordon healthy together for a full 60 minutes. And I also think we talked about 13 personnel, but I also think, 21, having both of those guys on the field at the same time would be a huge boost to this offense. It's just circumstances beyond anyone's control have prohibited that. So I think, like you mentioned, are there certain things that they would like to add to the game? Sure, but it's going to be tough.